Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit, and I'm not exactly sure where to start with this, so I'm just going to start talking. I wanted to talk about changing your beliefs and how that is such an important part of creating your world. There's manifesting a specific thing, and there are techniques for that. And, I put a video up about manifesting a text from an ex a few days ago. And, there are things like that you can just make happen. Bigger things, bigger life things like getting money or getting a house or a car or whatever. And that to me feels in a way like a separate issue from changing your beliefs, which is essentially changing your complete experience of everything. Because every belief that you have is part of the filter that you see the world through. And it plays into your interpretation of everything that happens to you, every experience that you have. Whatever the judgments are that you draw from it, those come from your beliefs. It's basically how you do the mental math for what things mean in life. And so if you're carrying around a lot of beliefs that don't serve you, you're going to have a shitty life and an unhappy one and possibly a depressed one. And you will probably not have the things you want. And if you do have the things you want, or you do get the things you want, you won't experience them in any kind of satisfying way. And so I wanted to talk about what I did with this, because I really consciously did a lot with this in the last 6 months. In fact, I think as late as last October, I was still really resistant to the idea of purposely reprogramming and purposely replacing one belief with another, because I felt like I've been living my authentic experience, and authenticity and, being genuine is important to me. And if I do anything other than just let my mind run wild, then it's basically fake. It's not a real experience. So what I need to do is try to manipulate the outside world so that I can then make my beliefs and judgments be based on something real, and then I will be happy or whatever. So for me, a big one was, I just got to get my body perfect, then I can genuinely believe that I am worthy. But see how that entire thought process is based on a faulty belief that my worth is based on how my body looks? This is like the hamster wheel that I ran on in several different areas for years and years. And so once I came to the conclusion that of this sort of underlying truth that your beliefs are causing everything, and that you are the creator of all of your beliefs, thus you are the creator of your entire outside world. None of your beliefs are actually coming from anything inherent about you, or they weren't given to you by some divine thing before you were born. Basically, everything that you think and believe has come from a decision you made to believe that, or a conclusion you drew, or basically an agreement with one of your parents or teacher, or I don't know, some dude that your mom dated for 2 weeks in 1987. Somebody wrote that on a Reddit post, that they figured out one of their beliefs was from something their mom's boyfriend said when they were 6 years old. And I had a ton of those too. Just a passing comment somebody made when I was at an impressionable age trying to figure out what this all meant. And I took it, and that became a solid iron belief about how things are. When I fully grasped that every single thing I'm experiencing is due to a choice I'm making to believe something, okay, that alone, understanding that, really getting that and accepting and just getting it, that oh my God, that is true. That alone all of a sudden it's like immediately I was like, oh, that, those are all bullshit beliefs. Gone. Like, things I had been thinking, man, it really sucks that this thing is true. I wish it weren't. When I realized that I was choosing to believe those things were true, a lot of those they were just gone immediately. My life got so much better. This is partly why I call it a spiritual awakening, because it's like a ton of these beliefs were just, it's like it was a sleep mask over my eyes. And when they disappeared, it's like that spark of understanding that I was creating it all, just lifted all of these things that were blinding me, and I was awake finally. And those things are gone forever. I mean, they can't come back. Now, I can't lose touch with this underlying truth that I'm creating it all with my beliefs and my thoughts. And so after that, having that underlying getting it really, like tilled the soil, essentially. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I was in fertile ground then for examining every single thing. And the way that I knew I was having a thought attached to a belief that wasn't based in reality was pain. Any kind of emotional pain I felt. First of all, this lifting of all these bullshit beliefs that just vanished made me feel so good. It was the spiritual awakening, right? So I was in just a state of bliss for days. It was amazing. And then every time I didn't feel blissful, it was like, well, what's going on? What happened to my bliss? Okay, what happened? This thing happened. Here's where it came from. I was feeling good until 8 a.m. What happened right after 8 a.m.? Like, when did this negative feeling start? What happened? Conversation with so-and-so. What was said? Okay, this is where it came from. Now, what did this do? What belief do I have that was triggered by this conversation? What does it mean? Where did it come from? It started out small. I was at work with my ex, my business partner, who's my ex, and I remember us having a conversation, and I started feeling really bad, and I was like, what's going on here? And I remember thinking, okay, I believe that I'm letting him down. I believe that if I let him down, he will abandon me. I'm afraid that because of this conversation we just had, it indicates something is wrong, and he is going to eventually disengage from our enterprise here and leave me to fend for myself. So it came down to a deeper thing. And for that one, I actually called him and told him about it. And he kind of said, oh, no way. No, that kind of resolved. That was like a surface thing. That resolved itself with a conversation. Immediately I'm better. I'm like, okay, I'm believing that, I don't remember what the hell the belief was there. Something, I'm believing that I'm fucking up and I'm going to be abandoned or something like that. And then other things came up. Other situations came up. Every time I felt that sense of well-being disappear, I'm like, okay, I'm existing in some kind of false, fearful state. Things that came up for me were, I will never be good enough. Specifically, my body will never be perfect. Trace that back to something from my child. My mom was kind of weird about body stuff growing up, and I realized that at some point along the way, I realized I gained some weight. Now, the skin on my stomach is no longer perfect. I'm ruined. I will never, ever not be ruined. There's nothing I can do about it. The only thing I could do is go get plastic surgery, and then I'll have scars. Everyone will know that I'm ruined. I don't know. If I have to explain why that's not right, then you might have some work to do on your body issues. But other stuff too, a huge one for me, and I hate to talk about this because I don't want to, some of this stuff is really personal and I don't mind sharing it, but it involves family members. I don't know. But my parents divorced when I was 14, and my dad exited the situation a couple years before that. And for my whole life, basically, up until literally December, I carried around this belief that Now, I've always heard, kids always blame themselves. They always think it's their fault. And I was like, I know that I'm not the reason that happened. I'm not one of those people. I don't blame myself. But I realized this whole time, I have been carrying around this belief that he was justified because of how horrible we were. Like, I was like, I know that I personally didn't contribute. I wasn't the reason, but what could he do? I can't really blame him. Like, we were so awful to be around. Like, how could he? I was such a shitty kid. How could he stand to be around me? I have no idea where I got this idea that I was a shitty kid. Like my best friend and I used to make prank phone calls, and one time we ran around the neighborhood picking everybody's flowers out of their yard and stuff, and we were little shits, but I wasn't a bad kid, and somehow in my mind I had equated this typical normal kid stuff with some great deficiency that I was essentially born with. Because if you're doing it when you're 7, right, you're born with it, right? Another false belief. And so I was carrying that around with me, and that caused me all kinds of pain. If you think that a relationship with a parent could have been different if you were just a better kid, I think a lot of people carry that around and they don't even realize it. It's just not phrased in a way that you can hear. And I suddenly realized that I believed that, no, I didn't think if I was a better kid, he would have stayed, but I definitely believed that I was not difficult to leave behind. And I believed that if that was the case, that it was because of my own deficiency. Whether or not I was easy to leave behind has nothing to do with me. For him, if it was easy for him to do that, that doesn't reflect on me, right? And the fact that I even believe that it was easy for him to do that is another thing. There are all these things that go into these huge formative events that create all of these beliefs that you then carry around everywhere, and they affect everything. They affect all of your relationships if you have those. Yesterday, in my video about rando nodding, I was saying that I often feel like I'm unimportant. That's been the thing I've been dealing with now. I stopped feeling like there's something wrong with me, because I really plumbed the depths of that whole thing I was just talking about. I mean, I drew a lot of conclusions about myself from that don't serve me, aren't true. I really explored that, and I started thinking of, I'm 40, I started thinking of it from this perspective, and thinking, if I were 45 and deciding to leave my family, would that be because there was something wrong with my kid? No, that would be because something was wrong with me. And so I was able to kind of get over a lot of those beliefs. And so this thing I'm faulty and it's just a matter of time till someone figures it out and leaves, however that was playing out in my relationships, that's stopped. That's gone. It made an enormous difference. I can see it in my relationship with Steve, which started developing immediately after I got rid of all of those beliefs. That's when all of a sudden Steve and I started having a real relationship. But anyway, in my rando nodding video yesterday, I was saying how I have this thing where I don't feel important. And I think that is another thing coming from that whole situation. I think being left by a parent, or, I mean, my dad didn't abandon me. He didn't go and he didn't leave my life. He just left the family, essentially. And I think I felt like I was very easy to leave. I definitely didn't feel important. And even over the last 5 years, the stuff about the parental divorce really started coming up when I was 35 and getting closer to their age. Because I started thinking, holy shit, I get what they did now. I was not a consideration. They didn't care about me. Maybe this is a belief that I came up with in the last 5 years, because I started getting really pissed about it. I started waking up angry in the morning about it sometimes, 25 years later. And I started feeling like, wow, I wasn't even a consideration. And I've been noticing that a lot in the last couple of years, with my last relationship, the person I manifested the text from, I felt really unimportant to him. And since yesterday, since just while I was talking during that video, I kind of realized, oh, I don't feel like I'm important, and there's these two huge events where I felt like I wasn't a consideration, both the thing I talked about with my dad and then my mom's subsequent remarrying. That was a theme for both of those. I just felt like, dude, I got lost in the shuffle. Really, like, I just got put on the back burner, totally. That was my perception. That's especially in the last 5 years. I'm just coming up with this right now too. I'm just realizing that I might have come up with this in the last 5 years. I realized that this feeling of feeling unimportant that I projected onto my relationships, my interpersonal relationships, is not coming from them. It's this old belief that I am not important, that when an event in my current situation shows up, I'm interpreting it through this lens with my belief that I'm not important. So it's like it defaults to that. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not important, so he treats me like I'm not important. Like, this is, and I'm sorry, like, everyone is doing this. I see it everywhere. My ex that I own a business with is having his own issues right now in his new relationship. It's all about the shit that happened way back when you were forming beliefs, or apparently when you were 35 and forming new bad beliefs. It's all coming from your beliefs. And so if you hear yourself saying something over and over again, like, he's just going to go find somebody better than me and have the relationship I wanted to have with her, that is you not feeling good about yourself. That's you feeling defective. That's you feeling like you weren't good enough to get the thing that you wanted. And you have to do some serious looking around to figure out where that's coming from, because I don't personally believe you can just say, I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough over and over again. Or if you can do that, it's going to take so much work to do that, to the point where you stop feeling that way, where you really change that underlying belief. Like, you can just think about it and figure out where it came from, look at it as an adult and go, oh, okay, I'm old enough and wise enough now to understand that I drew a faulty conclusion about that. Rationally, I can believe that now. So now I can let that go. And the next time you have that thing come up, you can just say, nope, I realize what this is now. This is just an old belief that came from something that was incorrect from the past. And I can now look at it rationally as an adult and understand that it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Other people's ability to have a relationship with you is not dependent on you. It's dependent on them. So anyway, just to touch on a few of my huge ones. This is 18 minutes long. I gotta stop. It's just too much. But I don't know. I hope that this made a difference. I hope this illustrated something for someone. They keep coming up over time. It's been 6 months for me. I'm just getting to this I'm not important thing. And I've been really hyper aware of this for a long time now, some months and months. And it's really important to look for those things, because they make such a difference in how you experience everything. It's like wearing sunglasses that have fingerprints all over them. You just remove them one at a time until you can finally see clearly, and everything looks great.